Good morning, good morning, good morning. And this is the day the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to Hope TV and thank you for carving out a portion of your morning to share with us here at the Hope TV. We're hope dealers, and our aim is to provide you with daily doses of hope. And it is incredible and a wonderful joy, an incredible and wonderful joy that you spend this time with us here at Hope TV. We started this platform back in the month of March as a way of staying in contact with the members of our local community. And a small idea has grown into a major global platform that's really touching and empowering and inspiring people all over the world. And to that we say, to God be the glory. And to you we say thank you for your support. Those of you who are regular supporters of Hope TV, thank you so much for your inspiration and your support. It's an incredible blessing to us. And those of you who are viewing today for the first time, welcome to the Hope TV community. I would pray that you are blessed and you're inspired. And once you become a part of our community, we don't believe in letting you go. So may God bless you. May God keep you. So everybody who's tuning in today from Apple TV or Roku or Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, the edoitsmith.org website, the House of Hope ATL.com website, the House of Hope Atlanta app. If you're viewing today through Periscope, and those of you who are viewing today through our new outlet, we have about 15 different distribution portals that we stream our content through. And we're so excited about our newest addition to the Hope TV family. We wanted to have one repository for all things Hope TV, where you can get all information, uploaded calendars to know what's playing, TV guide, and a general synopsis of all of our shows. And we want to thank you and invite you to check out, when you get opportunity, check out our new website, thehopetv.com. It's absolutely amazing. You can go and get a lot of insight about the Hope TV and brief synopsis of our shows. Most of them are on there, but when you tune in, you can get an opportunity to just see some past shows. You get an opportunity to again see what's airing. It's just an amazing opportunity. It really, really is. We have shows for married couples, for singles, for women, for men, for finances, for business owners, emotional health. We have a show for political civic activism called Town Hall. KD Bow leads a show called Man Up for Men. Laria Reed leads a show for women. Oh my goodness, called Pink Table Talk. We have a comedy show led by the one and only Alton Walker. I mean, just a plethora of shows. One on leadership, my NYM, one for senior adults, one for youth. Meredith Lilly, one of the nation's top political strategists, leads a show called Town Hall. Just an amazing cadre of programs. And we even have a program for coronavirus victims, mental health. It's all there. And because of that, I want to thank you for being a part. And you can leave us questions there. If you want to be a part of a show, you can note that there as well. If you want to leave me, send me a funny video for my Friday Night Live, you can do that there as well. So just a lot of great information for you. So when you get a chance, check out thehopetv.com and help us to spread that link. While you're there, please sign up for our monthly newsletter. Sign up, you can get so you can get the monthly newsletter that comes from the Hope TV, and that gives you even more information about our wonderful platform. So again, thank you for everything you're doing. I appreciate you for being a part of the Hope TV family. May God bless you. May God keep you is our prayer. I'm excited today that you've tuned into one of my favorite shows. All of them are favorite shows, to be honest with you. All of them I like, but a few just have a little special place in my heart. And this one today is very special. This program today, because you're watching what we call Morning Dew, which is our devotional that we do twice a week, every Tuesday and every Thursday morning. And it's been an inspirational time to get an opportunity to invite you in on my devotional life and what I'm studying. And today we're excited because I'm sharing with you something I've been studying devotionally since the summer, and it's been so rich that I want to share it with you. We're just taking a cursory glimpse, actually just walking through the book of Philippians, and it's been an amazing journey thus far, and I want to thank those of you who've been walking with us through Philippians. I'm moved by it, and thank you everybody who's gonna speak to me, shout us out today. While I'm on that too, if you're watching through a platform, if I could help myself, if you're watching through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, like, comment, or share, I'd be remiss if I didn't do this. Please do so now. If you subscribe now, that will give you notifications as when new content is uploaded. Your likes are major, helps us with our algorithms and our engagements. Keep hitting that like button. That has a tremendous benefit for us in terms of sponsorships and other things. Also, send your comments. That not only helps with our algorithms and our engagements, but when I'm sharing and programs like Morning Dew is like a virtual amen. So your comments are important. Then last but certainly not least, that share button helps us to expand it. So become a Hope TV ambassador and share that link with about 5 people right now. Please do so. Please, ma'am. Please, sir. Thank you for your time and thank you for doing that in advance. While I'm on this, let me go ahead and get into the our devotional. I'm excited about the devotional because we've been going through the book of Philippians, and the book of Philippians has been called the mental health book. It's been called the mental health book of the New Testament. And I think that's so important. It's called the book of mental health. And why that is so important? It's so important because in the time in which we live, when so much is going on, unfortunately, often in faith communities, we don't talk enough about the importance of maintaining emotional health and being healthy emotionally and mentally. Mental and emotional health are two of the issues that we don't talk a lot about. And that's unfortunate because we deal with the body, the spirit, and the soul. The soul is the seat of the mind and the emotions. As we're created in the image of God, one of the things God gave us is a soul. And that's where the mind and that's where the emotions reside in the soulish realm. The mind and emotions are in the soulish realm. And, everything God gives us, we got to be good stewards of it. And we often don't talk about, we talk about stewardship of our time, being a good steward of your time. We talk about being a good steward of your resources. If God gives you resources of money, being a good steward. Stewardship means being a manager of the things God has given us. And we talk about being good stewards of the earth in terms of pollution and those types of things. But typically, we don't look at emotional health as an issue of stewardship as well. Since God gave us the soul, since God gave us the mind, we need to be good stewards, not just of our bodies and our spirits, but also our souls. How are we stewarding? How are we managing the mind and the emotions that God has given us? And I think that's so important that we have to talk more about being healthy emotionally and healthy mentally. And so the book of Philippians has been called a book of emotional health and mental health. And I love it so much because of that regard. And it's the writer automatically qualifies for authenticity and is credible in terms of leading this discussion because if there's anybody who should have had some struggles emotionally and mentally, it really could have been the writer of Philippians, which is St. Paul. St. Paul really has had a whole lot to happen to him. And from the beginning of his ministry up until the penning of the book of Philippians, when you think about his life and his connection to the Philippians, his relationship to them alone, the trauma that he experienced, even when visiting Philippi for the first time on his missionary journey, that trauma alone could have affected him emotionally and mentally for the rest of his life. On his second missionary journey, the first missionary journey, he and Barnabas and John Mark, one of the first missionary journey, the second missionary journey, they decided to part ways and they didn't go on the second missionary journey. So Paul chooses Silas, Timothy, and Luke to accompany him on the second journey to carry the gospel into Asia Minor, which is southwestern Asia. And so what happens here as he's going to Asia Minor, carrying the gospel, what happens is he gets to a territory called Philippi. Thank you, producers. If you look on the map, you see number 5 there. That's a region called Macedonia. That whole region is named in honor of a guy who's named Philip II of Macedon, who is the father of Alexander the Great, who's Philip II was a mighty warrior in his own right. And if you notice that territory called Macedonia, that whole territory is named in honor of Philip II of Macedon. And he names a city in the eastern portion of the region of Macedonia named Philippi. Of course, he's Philip II of Macedon, thus Macedonia and Philippi. That territory you see, number 5 there, that was a parcel of land that was originally a colony that had been designated for former soldiers who had fought at his behest. When those soldiers would retire from the army and retire from battle, often they had nowhere to reside. And so Philip II designated this parcel of land for those former soldiers. We're talking about in the 4th century BC. And so inevitably, the 3 or 4 centuries after it was developed, it has grown from just a colony for former soldiers to now it really is a commercial epicenter. I mean, it's a place of trade because of the natural resources, because of its proximity to the Adriatic and the Aegean seas, because it's just a few miles inland from the Aegean. It's a coastal territory. People will come from all over the world because Philippi had become a travel hub by the 1st century. And so it was Paul's desire to take the gospel to Asia Minor on his second missionary journey. We see that when Paul initially goes on this second journey, he's really in the territory due east of number 5. If you look over to the right, you'll see Mysia and Bithynia. Those were the initial areas. You can come through Troas and a few other areas there. He was trying to take the gospel in those regions and really wanted to go to Mysia and Bithynia, but the Spirit forbade him from doing that. It blocked that route. And on 2 occasions did the Holy Spirit block Paul from carrying the gospel in some of those regions. And one night he had a vision from a man from Macedonia saying, "Come over here to Macedonia and help us." And so he leaves the area of Mysia and Bithynia and travels due west to get to Philippi. When he gets to Philippi, you can find all this in Acts chapter 16. When he gets to Philippi, he meets a young girl who had a spirit of divination, which was a mythical snake spirit, a snake spirit that was worshipped at the temple there in Delphi. It was this mythical python spirit that believed that anybody who was affected by it would have the ability to be a fortune teller. And so this girl was telling fortunes, and she was also was a form of caste slavery, indentured servanthood, because she's owned by men. And so they owned her, they used her, and they used her gift because she can make them money. And so what happens here is she recognizes the spirit and recognizes that Paul and his company are servants of God. So she followed them, saying, "These men are servants of the Most High God, which showing us the way of salvation." And she did it many days, Luke tells us in Acts 16. Paul inevitably became grieved, turned around, cast the spirit out of the girl, and she can no longer tell fortunes because the demonic spirit had been cast out. When the spirit had been cast out, of course, her owners were upset because they weren't happy about her deliverance, because her deliverance meant that they would have any more dollars. And so that spirit has always existed. They didn't care how captive she was. Her captivity brought them the economy. And so we know that spirit very well as well, particularly those who are African Americans. We know that captivity brings certain people. Captivity from one group means economy for another group. And because that group prioritized economy over humanity, profits over people, they were upset because they could make money out of her no longer. So they drew Paul and Silas to the marketplace, beat them with many stripes, and threw them in jail in Philippi. That was that territory that you see number 5 on the screen. That's where we get that great miracle. In Acts 16, Paul and Silas were locked up in jail in Philippi, in that Macedonian territory. And at midnight, they sang and prayed. Earthquake came, loosed their bonds. All the people in the jail were set free. And inevitably, even one of the jailers and his family got saved. And they were baptized. All of that took place in Acts 16. It took place in this territory called Philippi. And so that's where Paul's initial affinity with the Philippian church commenced. Well, now Paul writes the book of Philippians sometime later, and amazingly, he's incarcerated again. However, this time he's not incarcerated in Philippi. He's incarcerated in a place called Rome. And while he's in Rome, he picks up his quill and his parchments, and he writes to them, the Philippian people, to talk about the mind. He writes to, and you see that theme all throughout the book of Philippians. He writes about how to maintain a stable set of emotions and a stable mentality and a healthy perspective, even when all around you is topsy-turvy. It's amazing that while he's incarcerated, he gives information about how they can find inspiration. And he talks about the mind, and we've gone through a lot of that to try to really sanitize our perspective, to not be thwarted, whether it's the face of death, whether it's the mentality of humility, of service. His whole book is written to kind of stabilize us from a place of how we should think. And while he's in jail, and we're in chapter 4, we're still in chapter 4 today. And while he's in jail, he does something that's amazing today. Um, he does something that's amazing today. He 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 wants to share with them, which is it's just an amazing chapter for me. He wants to share with them how he feels for them. And we're going to look at Philippians chapter 4 today. Philippians chapter 4. I want y'all to see this. It's an amazing, amazing passage because he says something to them in Philippians 4:1. I'm reading from the Message translation that really gives us some insight about his perspective. You would think that he'd be having a pity party, but he says something, and for them, to his friends, he says, "My dear, dear friends, I love you so much. I do want the very best for you. You make me feel such joy. Fill me with such pride. Don't waver. Stay on track. Steady in God." That thing was so impactful for me because typically when you're incarcerated, you want people to come give you a word. Typically, when you're in a bad way, you need people to come and drop something in your spirit. I mean, think about it. They are free. He himself is on the verge of death, perhaps. That's why he says, if I live as Christ, if I die, it's gain. Either way, it's going to be all right. But he's in such a healthy place emotionally that he says, I want to talk about, I want to give something for my friends. That's what I call this today, for my friends. For my friends. What a selfless passage. What a selfless verse. Not asking for anything, not blaming them for his malady, not bitter, not critical, not cynical. He is not victimized. He is incarcerated. He says, but I'm not looking for visitors. I'm not sending you this letter because I want y'all to send me some cigarettes and put some socks and some money on my books. I'm not asking you to send my family anything. He says, I just got a word for my friends. That in the worst of situations, whether it be confinement, imprisonment, what I call Roman quarantine, I'm thinking about somebody else. I wish we had that kind of leadership with some of our governmental officials, that we can think about something else other than power and elections and staying in position. That even in difficult moments, I have a word of encouragement or something that's really authentic and supportive for others. One of the ways in which you know that you're in a good place emotionally is if we're not so self-centered, where the only thing we think about is ourselves. Paul is able to think about others. He's able to think about others. And he says, this word is for my friends. And the words that he spoke were so potent that I just internalized them. And I think those words are not just powerful for his friends, as he writes this in the first century, but it was so potent that I want to share it with you, my friends. I want to lift Paul's words that he gave for his friends. I want to lift them for you because the sentiments he had for his friends in this time of Roman quarantine are the same sentiments I have for you in this time of global unrest and civil disobedience and pandemic. I want to give a word for you, my friends. This is for my friends. And the first thing that he says in this passage, one verse, the first thing he does is he expresses his heart. Look how he expresses his heart. And the words that are on his heart are the words that are on my heart even now. He expresses his heart. He says, my dear, dear friends, I love you so much. I love you so much. My dear, dear friends, I love you so much. I love you so much. Do you know how powerful just those words are? I love you. Do you know that so many people battle with depression as we get ready to enter these holiday months? And those who've had trauma like I have with the past 4 years with death and craziness in your life, you don't know how much just the words "I love you" to the single person who's by themselves and is not a relationship. The person who can't pick up the phone and call mother, call their mom anymore. To the people who don't have siblings, to the only children, if you're the only child in your family, to the people in the hospital now with COVID and people can't come and visit you. Just the words, I love you. To those who've been battling depression and anxiety, just to be told, I love you. That I don't need you to do anything for me right now. I love you. I'm not expecting anything. I love you. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to gloss you or gas you, but just to know that no matter what happens, I love you. I want to share with you today that I hope that we find a way that is someone you haven't told that in a while. Somebody right now, somebody whose name is in your phone, somebody you haven't spoken to. My prayer that God drops them in your spirit just so you send a text. But don't let people just hear from you when they want something. Don't just don't wait till bad stuff happens. You know, one of the reasons why many of us struggle with things like guilt when there's a death of a loved one. Sometimes people never get over that. And it's not because of grief, it's because of guilt. I've seen sometimes the people who act the worst at funerals are those who had no relationship with the deceased or were out of fellowship with the deceased. And sometimes that guilt can haunt you for the rest of your life. You know, one of the blessings in my life is when my mother passed away. And no doubt about the most painful season of my life 4 years ago. One of the biggest blessings for me now, 4 years later, is knowing that she knew that I loved her. Not only would I tell her, but I would show her there's nothing I wouldn't do for her. I try to help. I would try to do what I could to help. I want to just, in a way, I would try to help. And I would sacrifice. I would whatever it took. And I think those are the moments that you can't get back. And so if there's somebody that you haven't spoken to in a while that you love, even in these moments, ask God to just drop them in your spirit to express your heart. And I want to say to you, all my friends who are watching today, I love you. I'm working harder now in this quarantine than I ever have in my entire life. I've been more creative and more thoughtful, and I've always worked hard. But even what we're doing, even trying to, even morning do, even the Hope TV, we're in a major building program at the church in the middle of a global pandemic, having worship in over 6 months publicly. But I'm busier now than I've ever been in 30 years of ministry. And all my friends said, man, we're concerned about your pace. How you gonna keep this pace up? And You're doing too much, man. Please, I mean, I hear it every week from people who I respect all across the country. How you keeping that pace up? How you doing it? And as my response is because of God's grace given to me, and the call given to me. But most importantly, is because of the love I want to share. I want people who are connected to this ministry to feel my love, that to see what we're trying to do, even through all what we're doing, the whole network, we're doing this because we're trying to show love, our inspiration. How do we keep you inspired and encouraged and hopeful in times like this? It's because of our love. And if anybody hasn't told you, you ever heard in a while, I just want you to know that not only does God love you, but we love you. We want you to be blessed and inspired and encouraged and motivated to know that nothing can separate you from the love of God. And so we're sowing the seeds of love. And so to my friends, the same way Paul expressed his love, allow me to express mine. We love you. You're our friends. And we just want you to know we love you. We want to express our heart to you. But not only does Paul express his love for his friends, the second thing he does is he expects the highest. That's the point. Second point. He expresses his heart, but then he says, I'm expecting the highest. That's point two. Look at what he says. His expectation of, he says, I expect the highest. That's point two. I love it. There is the expression of his heart, but then the expectation of the highest. What do you mean the highest? Look what he says. He says, my dear friends, my dear friends, I love you so much. I do want the very best for you. I'm just gonna take that one verse and just rip it apart. I love you so much. That's the expression of his heart. But I do want the very best for you. That's the expectation of the highest. He says, listen, the only thing I want you to expect from me is for me to get out of here. Expect that I'm gonna get out of here. Expect that we're gonna have a reunion. But while I want you to expect my release, what I'm expecting for you is the very best. I got the highest of expectations. I want you to set your mind and your affections on things which are above. I want you to know that even in times of confinement and quarantine and imprisonment, I want you to know that even when faith was under attack and the first century Christians were being oppressed and persecuted by the Roman government, he says, my expectations are the highest. Oh, I expect nothing. I desire nothing but the best for you. I'm speaking in your life in this fourth quarter of this year. That not only do I want to express my heart, but I want to let you know I'm expecting the highest for you. I expect you to walk in a level of faith that you've never walked in before. I expect of each one of you that you're going to tackle this fourth quarter, that you're going to take this bull by the horns, and that you're going to continue to fight and wrestle for your victory. I expect for you nothing but increase and nothing but favor. I expect for you that the struggle is getting ready to be over. That thing you've been dealing with for years, I expect it to end. I expect that you've been in this place long enough, and your mountainside has been rough, but the struggle is over for you. I expect that. I expect a miracle. I see the invisible. I feel the intangible. I expect that the sky is not going to be your limit. Your faith is. The sky is not your limit. It's only in your way. Your faith is the only thing that can limit you. I want you to wrap your mind around it. I want you to believe that God is able to do exceeding and abundantly above all you can ask or think. I expect you to live. I expect you to survive. I'd expect you to come out of this with your hands up in the air. I expect you to look back on this year and say, if it had not been for what I went through, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I'm expecting that during this time, I'm expecting that as a seed is buried, that the seed has to be buried, has to be covered. It has to be placed in the ground and in a dark place in order for it to germinate. I'm expecting that while it feels 2020 has buried us and put us in darkness and put us under the ground, I'm expecting the seed in you to germinate that 2021 is going to be the best year of your life, and that what God is doing right now is preparing you for something that I had not seen, nor ear heard, nor had it entered into your hearts. I'm expecting greatness. I'm expecting great things because we serve a great God and you're great people. So, for my friends, Paul says, let me express my heart. I love you so much. He says, let me tell you that I'm expecting the highest. He says, I wish nothing but the very best for you. That's my expectation. I don't want anything. If it's not the best, I don't want it. I want the best for us in our relationships. I want the best for us financially. I want the best for us physically and spiritually and mentally and emotionally. Nothing but the best. I want the best for us politically, so we need to go out and vote for the best option. I want the best, by not anything mediocre, or average. I want the best. I want anything that's beneath God. Whatever God has for me, I want the best of what God has for me. I don't want to settle nothing less but God's best. And I speak that over your life. So for my friends, Paul says, I want to express my heart. I expect the highest. But then he exclaims that they're the crown on his head. That's point 3. He exclaims they're the crown on his head. Listen what he says about this. It blessed me. He says, my dear friends, my dear friends, I love you so much. I do want the very best for you. You fill me with such joy. You make me feel such joy. Fill me with such pride. It's amazing. He says you make me feel joy and you fill me with pride. That's what he said. You make me feel joy and you fill me with pride. I like how he says it even in the King James version, which is a powerful version. In that Philippians 1 passage, he says, "Let me tell you what y'all do for me." He says, "Y'all are my joy." He says in Philippians 4. He says in Philippians, he says, "I want y'all to know something." He says, "Let me tell you what you guys have done for me." He says, he says, "I've longed for you, my joy and my crown." That's what King James in the NIV says. He says, "You're like the crown jewel of my head." Amazing. When I look at you, he says, he says, when I get to heaven, I'm gonna get a crown. He said, while I'm on earth, you're my crown. You're my crowning achievement. To see your growth, to see your faith fills me with joy. To see you hanging in here and persevering fills me with joy. Can I tell you what makes me so thankful? That I understand, not in full extent, because I've never gone through exactly what Paul goes through, but for me, as this relates to me, I've never been incarcerated before, so I'm not trying to put myself in those shoes. But what I am saying is this: Paul is saying how you maintained during my quarantine, how you carried yourself during my imprisonment, while we've been separated, how you're continuing fills me with such joy. He says, how you're maintaining is like my crowning achievement. He says, the fact that you're still doing what you do, you make me feel such joy. You fill me with such pride. He says, you're my crown, you're my joy, you're my crown. I was thinking about that in terms of those of you who haven't been able to make it to public worship. I'm thinking about those of you who haven't been inside of a sanctuary since March. I haven't been able to worship with our people since March the 8th. My first time. I've been pastoring for 30 years. You never could have told me there would be a time when we wouldn't be able to gather. That's April. March 8th was our last worship service. From March 8th until today, haven't had worship. That's April, May, June, July, August, September. It'll be 7 months. 7 months this coming Thursday that I haven't seen our people. 7 months that I haven't been fellowship on a Sunday with our members. 7 months. Been quarantined. 7 months. Been confined. 7 months We've been isolated. Nobody prepared for this. No book, no conference. But you know what fills my heart with joy? The fact that people are still connected to ministry. The fact that people still are connected to Hope TV. The fact that members are on here now every Tuesday, every Thursday for Bible study, to see me act silly on Fridays, to be ministered to for married couples or singles or exercise, to see people still giving, support ministry, to see our outreach ministry still feeding people. Not a way if you're in Atlanta and you go to Decatur County, you need food. We're gonna be feeding 1,000 more people this week, and we'll put that word out. So stay in touch with. Keep watching social media for the announcements. But our outreach ministry is doing more than we ever have. Our operations ministry is completing phase after phase of our Mission 2020. 7 months after no worship. Our Hope TV has come from a meager vision on March 16th now to over 50 million views. This is a crown. One of the crowning jewels of my ministry is to be able to say when companies are shutting down and filing bankruptcy, the fact that the saints of God are saying, I love you, God. I'm committed to the ministry. I'm still faithful. I'm still being fed. I can't be in church, but I can be in front of the computer. I can't be in the house of the Lord, but I can get hope from my laptop. I can't stand there and I can't sing I praise you in the building, but I can't have an iPad that brings me a blessing. When you think about that, when I think about how pastors were talking, what's going to happen to the church in March, I was counseling some of the pastors all over the nation, some of the top pastors in the nation, mega pastors who were worried silly about what we're going to do. And my refrain was, if we take care of God's people, God's going to take care of us. We don't need to try to fight this just to pay. No, don't ever put the economy over humanity. Don't ever put profits on the people. Put the people first. If we put the people in the kingdom first, God will take care of us. If we prioritize public safety, God will make sure every need is supplied. You might not ever hear this because I would never call names because that's not what I do. But I'm telling you, we all were worried. We all were concerned. We all didn't know what was going to happen. But I knew what God said. And a few others knew that. And here's my point. The fact that we're still believing and still trusting God when so much will make us walk away from faith to believe if God is your control, 200,000 people have died, but yet we're still saying, though you slay me, yet will I trust you. All the days of my appointed time when I wait till my change come. Oh, that's the crown on my head. One of the crowning jewels of my entire ministry. I'm tearing up thinking about it. Is the fact that some of you, by the thousands and thousands, have still been connected to ministry, even in my quarantine, in our absence, in our confinement, in our isolation. The fact that you haven't stopped reading your word, worshiping, supporting ministry, and doing ministry. It's a crowning jewel. To God be the glory. For my friends, so what Paul does here, first of all, he expresses his heart. That was point one. Point two, he says, he expects the highest. Point three, he says, let me exclaim that you are the crown on my head. But then fourthly, he explains that they should be steady in him. He explains that they should be steady in him. Look what he says here. He says, my dear friends, I love you so much. That's how he expresses his heart. I do want the very best for you. That's the expectation of the highest. You make me feel such joy. Fill me with such pride. That's how he exclaims at the crown on his head, especially in that King James Version. But notice the last clause. He explains that they should be steady in him. He says, listen what I want you to do. Don't waver. Stay on track. Steady in God. He explains that they should be steady in him. Not lowercase him, not in Paul, but in him, in God. He says that while we're quarantined, that while I'm confined, that while I'm in prison, that though we can't gather publicly, that though I want you to expect that we're gonna get together. I'm gonna get out of here, so we're gonna fellowship. That's my expectation, he says. We're gonna have a reunion. He says, but until then, don't you waver. The good, the bad, the indifferent, the ugly. Don't you waver. Stay on track. Steady in God. I want to close by telling you something. We're in the fourth quarter of this year, and games in football and basketball can be won or lost in the fourth quarter. Don't you allow the difficulty and the pressure of the fourth quarter to get you off course. That while we're closing and rounding curve, I ran track, I ran the relays, and that fourth leg was so important in the relay race. I ran the second and third leg, sometimes the first. That fourth leg was so important because the fourth leg is the one that brought it home. Even though I never ran the fourth leg in a real meet, I was either first or third. I came to tell you that we all have an opportunity in the spirit to be fourth leg runners. The third quarter had handed us the baton. The crossing finishing line is in view. Don't let the cramps of confusion, don't let the fatigue of frustration, don't let the dehydration of depression and despair cause you to cramp up and take your eyesight off the victory line. My friends, glory is waiting for us. My friends, blessing and power are waiting for us. But we can't waver. We got to stay on track, steady in him. We're going to get the victory. We're going to be able to explain and exclaim, thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. My friends, I'm expecting you to stay steady in him. Appreciate the ministry of others. Respect and honor your leaders. Study your leaders. Study with your leaders. You study with your leaders, but stay steady in him. My brothers and my sisters, we're going to win. You are anointed to win. I want you to type that in the comments right now. I'm anointed to win. I'm anointed to win. I'm anointed to win. You can't lose with the God you use. You can't use with that anointing in your life. You are anointed to win. I see. I'm anointed to win. I'm anointed to win. Yeah. Defeat is not an option. I'm going to stay the course. I'm not going to waver. I'm going to stay steady in him. Huh? I'm saying steady. My God. They begin to rock steady, steady, rocking all my life long. I'm rocking steady, baby. I ain't going back. I'm staying steady in him because I'm anointed to win. Why? I don't believe he's brought me this far. I don't feel no ways tired. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy. And I don't believe he's brought me this far to leave you. Hallelujah. You're anointed to win. You are anointed to win. So my friends, Paul says, number one, let me express my heart. That was point one for those who just tuned in. He expresses his heart. That was point one. He says, my dear friends, I love you so much. That was point one. And after he expresses his heart, he expects the highest. Then he exclaims there with a crown on his head. Then the fourth thing, he explains that they should be steady in him. You are anointed to win. I express my heart. I love you. I expect the highest. That's point two. I expect it to be the best. He exclaimed that you are the crown on his head. You're my joy. You feel how you handle this quarantine? It's my joy. And he explains that they should be steady in him. You got it. You're anointed to win. You're anointed to win. Stay steady. Don't move to the left or right. Stay steady. My daddy would say, keep it in the middle of the road. Stay steady. Stay steady. Don't waver. Stay steady in him. Stay steady in him. But thanks be to God which gives us the victory. Therefore, my loved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as you know, your labor is not in vain in the Lord. This was for my friends. My friends, you've been watching Morning Dew. Until next time, if you will be good to God, God will be good to you. Peace.